Ready for a journey back in time? Today we're diving into Richard Dawkins' The Genetic Book of the Dead. It's all about how animals are like living, breathing historical records.
Yeah, it's like instead of digging up fossils, we're looking for clues in the animals all around us.
Exactly. So how about we unpack that a bit? Dawkins talks about animals being palimpsests. I love that word. But what's it actually mean in this context?
Well, imagine like an ancient scroll, right? Something that's been written on, erased, written on again. You can still kind of see those faint traces of the old writing underneath.
Oh, I get it. Like layers of history.
Right. And Dawkins says that's what an animal's body is. All those little quirks, those seemingly random traits, those are our layers of text. Each one tells us something about their evolutionary journey.
So a giraffe's long neck isn't just about reaching tall trees. It's also a clue to what its ancestors were like, what challenges they faced.
Exactly. And a chameleon's camouflage, it's not just about blending in now. It's also about the millions of years of evolution that led to that incredible adaptation.
That's mind-blowing. So we don't need to be like geneticists to decipher these clues, do we?
Nope. Dawkins says anyone can be a scientist of the future just by observing the world around us.
Scientists of the future.
Yeah.
I love that. It makes evolution feel so much more accessible. Speaking of clues, you got any favorite examples from the book? Something that really brings this idea to life?
Oh, Dawkins has this great bit about owls, masters of camouflage.
Oh yeah, they blend right into those trees.
Right. But here's the thing, their symmetry actually kind of gives them away. Like, their plumage might perfectly match tree bark, but those symmetrical patterns, it's almost like a glitch in their evolutionary software.
Wait, so evolution gave them amazing camouflage, but couldn't quite erase the blueprint for, like, bilateral symmetry.
Exactly. Makes you wonder what other secrets are hiding in plain sight, right?
Totally. So are we talking, like, other examples where evolution kind of trips over its own feet?
Well, that brings us to this really fascinating phenomenon called convergent evolution. It's basically like evolution hitting the repeat button.
Convergent evolution, huh? So it's like evolution have a limited set of tools, but is a master at repurposing them. What kind of repeats are we talking about?
Oh, there's tons. One of the most classic examples is wings. Bats, birds, insects.
Right, they all do it differently.
Totally different structures, different evolutionary paths, but they all ended up with flight.
Different blueprints, same incredible outcome.
Okay, that's a good one. What else?
Well, Dawkins also talks about this thing with marsupial and placental mammals.
Oh, right, like on different continents.
Mm-hmm.
They evolved similar forms to fill similar,
Ecological niches.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you've got your marsupial moles in Australia, and then you've got, like, your regular moles.
Living almost identical lifestyles.
Exactly, and they both dig underground.
Yep.
They both,
Yeah.
but completely different lineages.
Wild.
Oh, and then there's echolocation.
Oh, yeah.
Bats, dolphins.
Even some birds.
Yeah. It's like, talk about convergent evolution. It makes you think, like, if you could rewind the evolutionary tape, would things look totally different? Or would we see these same patterns?
That is the million-dollar question, right? And to really get into that, we kind of have to shift our perspective. Dawkins, he introduces this idea of looking at evolution from the gene's eye view.
Okay, so instead of looking at the animal, we're thinking about the genes themselves.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting.
All right, so tell me more about this gene's eye view. How does that change things?
Well, it's a powerful way to understand how these complex behaviors, even the ones that seem counterintuitive, they can arise. It's like, imagine a gene, right? And it's looking back through time at all its ancestors. It's carrying all those traces of past successes and failures.
Oh.
Right. And this helps explain things like, the cuckoo bird.
Ah, the cuckoo. Now, there's a bird with a unique parenting strategy.
You could say that again.
So how does this gene's eye view help us understand that whole cuckoo egg situation?
Well, think about their egg mimicry, right? Different cuckoos have evolved eggs that perfectly match their host species.
So a cuckoo that targets, say, a reed warbler will lay eggs that look like reed warbler eggs.
Exactly. Now, from the cuckoo's perspective, that's obviously beneficial, increases the chances its eggs will be accepted, incubated, all that.
Right.
But now, think about it from the gene's perspective.
So those genes for egg mimicry, they've been passed down for generations, carrying that memory of successful deception.
Precisely. Those genes are basically looking back at a long line of ancestors who were successful at that very specific type of trickery.
Clear.
And the ones that weren't, well, they didn't survive to tell the tale.
It's like a genetic echo of cuckoo trickery. passed down through the ages. But it's not just the eggs, right? Those cuckoo chicks, they're notorious for tricking their foster parents into feeding them, even when they're like 10 times the size.
Oh, yeah. They're little masters of manipulation.
It's really unbelievable.
And those cuckoo chick genes, they're carrying the legacy of generations of ancestors who were masters at that. The genes that said, hey, maybe we should be nice to these birds that are raising us. Well, those genes didn't make it.
Good thing humans don't have those genes. Or maybe we do. It makes you think about our own genes and the stories they tell. What echoes of past struggles, past triumphs, are hidden in our DNA?
That is a fantastic question. And it actually leads us to another really intriguing point that Dawkins brings up, this concept of genetic bottlenecks.
Genetic bottlenecks.
Yeah, he even talks about how his own genome analysis revealed this fascinating glimpse into, human history.
Genetic bottlenecks.
Okay.
Sounds a little intense. What exactly is a genetic bottleneck?
So picture this. You've got a population of animals, maybe a herd of antelope. Suddenly, bam, natural disaster.
Oh no, like a flash flood or something.
Exactly. Only a handful survive. Now, those survivors, just by chance, they might have a slightly different genetic makeup than the original population.
So it's like the gene pool gets squeezed through this tiny opening, and only certain genes make it through.
Yeah, it's like hitting the reset button on a population's genetic diversity.
Wow. So everyone descended from those survivors, they inherit that slightly skewed gene pool.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is, we can actually see evidence of these bottlenecks in the DNA of living species today. Even humans. Like Dawkins talks about his own genome analysis.
Oh, right. So what did his genes reveal? Was there a bottleneck somewhere in his family tree?
There was. He traced his lineage back, and it all pointed to this point, roughly 60,000 years ago. A significant bottleneck happened right around then.
Wow. It's like holding a piece of your own deep history. Written in your DNA. That's incredible. But this whole genetic book of the dead thing, it's not the whole story, is it? There's more to life than just our genes.
Oh, absolutely. Dawkins acknowledges that. He talks about the book of the living, too.
The book of the living?
Yeah, it's that other layer of information, the stuff that's shaped by learning, by our experiences.
So, DNA is the blueprint, but life experiences add all those unique details and modifications.
Precisely. He gives this great example with imprinting in birds.
Oh yeah, how baby birds learn to recognize their parents, their species song.
Right. That's the book of the living in action. It's learned behavior shaped by their early environment.
So even though they have the genes for their species-specific song, they still need the right experiences to develop normally. It's like nature gives them the instrument, but they have to learn to play the right tune. Are there other examples of this book of the living at work?
Tons. Think about the immune system. It's constantly learning, adapting to the specific pathogens you encounter.
So our immune system is building its own unique memory of past infections.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how learning, even at the cellular level, shapes our responses. And this whole interplay between genes and experience, it gets even more wild when you think about the human capacity for imagination.
Okay, so how does imagination fit into this? We're not just talking about birds learning songs here.
Right. But think about it. Imagination, it lets us envision things that have never existed. We create art, tell stories, develop technologies. It's like this whole other level of information processing.
It's like our genes gave us the building blocks, but imagination lets us build anything we can dream up.
Exactly. We can learn, we can adapt, we can create, and we add our own unique chapters to the story of life. And that story, it's not just written in the genetic book of the dead, it's written in the book of the living, too.
It's like we inherit this amazing library from our ancestors, all that wisdom and knowledge encoded in our DNA. But we also have the power to write our own books, add our own stories to the collection.
I love that. And by reading both those books, the genetic book of the dead and the book of the living, we get this much deeper appreciation for the tapestry of life, for all those forces that shaped who we are.
It makes you think about the legacy we're leaving behind, not just in our genes, but in the stories we tell, the art we create, the knowledge we pass on. It's pretty amazing.
It really is.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. A huge thank you to our expert for taking us on this incredible journey through the genetic book of the dead and beyond.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to check out our show notes for more information on Richard Dawkins' work and all the fascinating topics we discussed. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and we'll see you on the next Deep Dive.